I read 23 books in 2024. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Cabrini Sense, and today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in 2024. I had a really good reading year. Like, I haven't read this well since I was probably in middle school, and just like reading was essentially like a really big part of my life. Really, since then I haven't spent like a ton of time reading. It's been really hard to find like good books that are worth it, honestly. So I'm just gonna dive right in and we're just gonna talk about the books that I read because I'm so excited to be filming this video and sharing with you the books that I read. So I started the year with finishing Little Men by Louisa May Alcott. This is the third book in the Little Women series. A lot of people don't know that there are sequels to Little Women. So Little Women is technically the first book, and then Good Wives is the second book. But normally it's just like part 2 of the Little Women book, but it also depends. But then this book comes after. This is Little Men. In this book, Jo has opened up a school and she is teaching a group of boys. There's maybe like 12, 15 of them that you're following. And yeah, you're just following these like 12-year-old boys on their adventures. And it's a really good time. I really enjoyed this book. I think I technically started it in 2023, but I finished it in 2024. So I really enjoyed this. It was a really good time. Definitely recommend. It is a little bit more juvenile just because you are following like 12-year-old boys, but I could definitely see this being like a fun book to read, just something that's a little bit different. Yeah, definitely recommend this one. I rated this book I think a 4 star. I just love Louisa May Alcott's writing and the stories that she tells, and yeah, so I rated this book a 4 star. And this was a great start to the year. And then the next book that I read, I was kind of starting to like dabble into like the booktube world. That was a big part of my like reading this year, was entering or like discovering the booktube world and like seeing like Haley Pham and Sarah Caroli and Destiny Sidwell and Sincerely V and just like a bunch of other like booktubers like talk about books and review them and like give spice level and stuff like that. So one that was kind of going around on booktube was Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I think that this book came out not too long ago. It is a young adult romance. I think it's her first one. And like the main premise is chess, if you see by the cover. But this book I literally just picked up at a Walmart because I was like, it looks cute. It doesn't look like it's too spicy, which if I remember correctly, there might be one spice scene in it towards the end. Overall, it was a really good read. You're following Mallory, who is the like main female character. She kind of has a love-hate relationship. No, she hates chess, but she's kind of a chess prodigy. But she hates it because of her father and just like some things that happened. But she is basically supporting her family because her mom is sick, I think. And she has 2 sisters. And something happens. She's working as a mechanic, and then she plays a game of chess, or her friend convinces her to play a game of chess. It's been a while since I read this book, but yeah, something like that happens. So she plays a game of chess. She does really well, and then a chess like club reaches out and wants to pay her to play and like represent them. So she ends up taking the job. I think that she hides that she's playing chess for a while, but the main love interest is also a chess player. He's like the best chess player ever, and then she beats him and it's like this big deal. But you just like follow her journey with chess, and I'm not a huge chess person, but I seriously enjoyed this book a lot. So if the reality of chess is keeping you from reading it, I would still recommend it just because it was really good. I like her best friend. Like, we have some good supporting characters, and her sisters are fun and her mom is fun. So overall, this is just a really good book to read. So I definitely recommend it. I didn't really rate this book because this was like kind of the beginning of the journey, and I didn't really know, like I didn't have a lot to like base it off of. I think now I would rate it like a 4 star. It was pretty good, and like when I think about it, I have fond memories, and when like I see other people reading it, I'm like, yes, read that book, like it's really good. So I enjoyed it. So I think I'm gonna put it at like a 4 star. So then in like May, I think, is when I like fully like deep dove into the like booktube world, and I started reading, and I started like making a TBR of like all these books that I want to read that are really popular. And so that was like really the start of this journey. So the first book that I read, I don't have with me. If you don't know, I'm a library girl because books are expensive, and if I can't thrift it, I'm gonna get it from the library because that's essentially it. So I got this one from the library. It is called If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. I'll pop it up right here. Essentially it's, well, this book is actually a part of a, I don't know if it's an interconnected standalone or if it's just like a type of book that's in a series that are just like standalones. But it's I think it's called the Meant to Be collection, maybe. I think that Christina Lauren, I think that Christina Lauren's newest book, I don't know, whatever the Tangled one is, falls into this category of book. But essentially this book is if like Cinderella met the Bachelor. So we have this girl, she's plus size. That is one of like the bigger things that are like played into, which I think is a theme that Julie Murphy ties into all of her books. She also wrote Little Dumpling, the Dumpling series. I don't remember what it's called. It's a movie on Netflix too. But yeah, so essentially this book is, our main character is hoping to be a designer, and her mom runs the show, and she just moves home after design school because she can't like find a design job. And her mom is talking to her two stepsisters, which are lovely, by the way. I love when like stepsisters and Cinderella retellings are really nice. But she's talking to her two sisters about being on the show, and our main character is like, I want to be on the show too. And there's a little bit of like a, I don't know, her stepmom is actually really nice, and she's like, I don't want you to be hurt by the people who are just jerks because you are plus size. And it's kind of like a little bit of a thing, but she ultimately ends up going on the show, and her main reason is she wants to show off like her designs and yeah, all of that. I think she does ultimately fall in love with the Bachelor. If I remember correctly, there's no spice in it. Maybe. It's very low spice, if there is any spice at all. But I like remember like the end scenes very clearly. Like she goes to dinner, I think, at the end in this restaurant all by herself. I think that's this book. But anyways, it was a really good read. I definitely recommend it. I rated it a 4-star. It was just like a really, really good time. And yeah, I recommend it, and I hope to read the rest of the Meant to Be books in the upcoming years. So then the next book that I read is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. Guys, I love this book. People talk about Catherine Center, and I was like, she sounds like my kind of girl. Like her books are like cutesy romance, but also like a little bit of depth. And this book, The Bodyguard, had such a plot twist at the end. Oh my gosh, I think about it now and I'm like, yes, yes please. Like this might be a book that I reread one day because it's just so good. Also no spice in this one, I think. But essentially we're following a movie star, super famous movie star, who there was some type of threat on him when he was living in his hometown. He moves away, and then his mom ends up getting cancer, and he's like, I want to come back, but if I come back, I need a bodyguard. So he hires a bodyguard, and it's our female main character, and you see her like protecting him and whatnot, but he doesn't want his family to know that he's kind of in danger, so they play it off that she's his girlfriend. And there's fake dating in it. There's very much like a southernness to him, like a countryness to him. I think we're in Texas. But yeah, you're just like following him, and like you're seeing them fake date, and there's some like super cute moments. Like, oh my gosh, the piggyback ride moment. Oh, so cute. Oh my gosh, I love this book so much. I like forgot how much I love this book. But definitely a 5-star read. I loved it so much. Just like following them and like their story. There is my only critique is the third act breakup. The third act breakup is like super random. Like, I don't know, it just kind of came out of nowhere and I'm like, why is this happening? But whatever, it was fine. 5-star read, absolutely loved it. Yeah, I definitely want to get that book because it's like just such a good book. On to the next book that I read. I loved that Catherine Center book so much. Well, technically right here I started reading Mistakes We Never Made by Hannah Brown, but this was like right when I was traveling, and so I was going home to Ohio, and it was a library book, and it was gonna be overdue if I took it with me, so I ended up returning it before I went to Ohio. And in Ohio I ordered a book, and so that is my next read, How to Walk Away by Catherine Center. I just love Catherine Center so much that I was like, I need to read another one. And oh my gosh, guys, How to Walk Away was so good. Honestly, talking about Catherine Center books, like, I need to read more of her books next year. But How to Walk Away by Catherine Center was so good. Oh my gosh, you're following. Dude, we have like drama right off the bat. So, female main character, she is literally getting proposed to in the first chapter, and then there's a terrible plane accident and she ends up going paralyzed. And like, you see her whole journey in the hospital, you see her journey with her engagement, you see her relationship with her sister, which is like super interesting, and her parents, and there's like random but like super fitting like plot points that like just pop up so randomly in this book, and it's just such an adventure. Like, I loved this book so much. Like, it was just so good. And I was reading it like when I went to France. I was reading this book and it was just like really, really good. Like, I remember like standing in line to like go into the Louvre Museum in France, and I'm literally like reading this book because I'm like so invested. So yeah, it was just like so good. 10 out of 10. Like, I loved this book. So I think at the time I rated it a 4.5 star, but I think I'm gonna bump it up to a 5 star just because I loved it so much, and like remembering it, I really get that 5-star feeling. Right around this time is when I was getting married, so my reading definitely dipped a lot in July, and I like didn't read a ton, but because I had just gone to France, a book that I really wanted to pick up was The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George, and I have been wanting to read this book for a really, really long time. Nina George has a blip on one of my favorite books, The Girl from the Train. Excuse me. And I just like love this book so much. Oh my goodness. And I just love that book so much, so I was like, I really want to read this book. So I started it, I think while we were in France, and I was kind of reading it like on the plane after we got married, and like picking it up sporadically like on our honeymoon, and then we ended up going to California like right after our honeymoon. I took this book with me, and I remember sitting on the beach reading it, and like I could not get into the storyline. I was just like not a huge fan of it. Like, essentially you're following this man who is, I don't know what his name is, Jean Perdue. So we're following Jean Perdue, and he owns like a library or like a bookstore that's like on a boat on the Siena River, like right next to the Eiffel Tower. And he believes that books are like medicine, and like if you pick up the right book at the right time, like it can like emotionally cure you. So we're following this, and like he doesn't believe in love anymore. He was in love with this woman, but she was married to someone else, so he was like the other guy that she was having an affair with, and then she ends up like leaving him, and he's like so heartbroken over that. And it's been like 20 years or something since it happened, like 10 years, like a good bit of time. And he opens up this letter from her and realizes that she left because she has cancer, but she wants him to come find her. And he's like, oh my gosh, like I probably have run out of time. And so he ends up taking his boat and like sailing down the river to go find her. I don't know, it just kind of... Haley Pham loved this book. When she went to France, she literally read this book. I actually read this book before she did in France, but you know, that's besides the point. Yeah, she like loved it. She loved the poeticness of it. I could not get behind it. Like, I felt like I was rooting for the wrong person, and like it just felt like such a random, like, I don't know, I just couldn't get behind it, and I wasn't a huge fan of her writing, and so I ended up actually DNFing this book. This is one of only 2 books that I DNF'd this year. So yeah, I DNF'd this book, and yeah, that's that. I don't really have much more to say about it. So I'm obviously not going to rate it because I didn't finish it. But the next book that I read, or like continued and finished, I was kind of in a bit of a book slump after that book. And I was like, why am I in a book slump? And then I realized that I never finished Mistakes We Never Made by Hannah Brown. And so there was like kind of an open tab of this book in my brain. So I ended up picking it up and finishing it. And essentially this book is, you have a woman and her best friend is getting married, and it's like literally the week of the wedding, and like the titles are like 4 days until the wedding, 2 days until the wedding, 18 hours until the wedding. So there's like a little bit of urgency in this book. She's there, she's with the bride, and then all of a sudden the bride like flips out and she's like, I don't even know. She literally just disappears. And so she goes and she takes the bride's other best friend, who is like her ex, she didn't really like, so it's a second chance romance, forced proximity, and they're like going to find her. And I remember enjoying this book, but also not being like over the moon about it. I was listening to a podcast and they actually had Hannah Brown and her husband on this podcast, and she was talking about her book, and I was like, that's so cool that like I think Hannah Brown like won the Bachelorette or something, and then she's like done a bunch of things, and then she wrote this book, and I was like, that's so cool, like she's done all these things, but like she still like wrote a book. And so I was like, I want to read it. So I read it. I don't remember it a ton. I think I just rated it a 3-star. Not like super clear in my brain, but I think that's because like I took so long to read the whole thing. I remember being satisfied with the ending. I think that she has a second book coming out in 2025, so I'm planning on reading that one. So it wasn't like anything like super crazy, but I did enjoy it. So the next book that I read was Love at First Book. And guys, there's like a whole reading vlog for this book. Like I flew through this thing. Like I literally read it in like 2 days. It was just like the perfect story in my brain. I don't know why I loved it so much, but I did. Essentially we have this girl who's a librarian. She's like maybe in her 30s. She's a little bit older. And she's been a librarian at Martha's Vineyard for literally forever, and she's like kind of over it. And then her dream author wants someone to come help her finish like the last book in this series, and it's been a long time since like the last book has been needing to come out for the series, but she offers to help her dream author. Emily is the librarian, Siobhan is the dream author, or her favorite author, and so she ends up moving to Ireland, Emerald Island, and so she goes, she helps her write the book. There's a love interest who owns a bookstore, but there's so much to this book, guys. I loved it so much. There's a line in here, I don't think I highlighted it, but like I got my reaction to this line on camera, and it's like talking about how writing like sucks you in, and like that's the part about writing that scares me so much. But I was like, he gets it, he understands. So 5-star read. Love this so much. I'm probably overhyping it just because it just like found me at the right time at the right place, and it just like applies to me too much. But yes, that is it. So great book right there. And then the next book that I read is The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley. I read this book in a 24-hour challenge. It was my first 24-hour reading challenge, and I totally failed. Like, it was not good. It was a rough endeavor. So I do have a whole video of that, but it's literally like 12 hours of me just trying to finish this book, and it was brutal. I did really enjoy the book though. It's the hypothetical of if Britain discover time travel, and so they go back and they rescue like people that are about to die. So it's not like this huge earth-shattering, altering whatever. So they rescue like 5 people from the past, and they get placed with a like present day ambassador that helps them like integrate into society. And yeah, you just see that journey. That's the majority of the book. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Like when I think about it, it was really good. I do remember it is a little bit more historical, and I do remember like being like it's dragging on, but I think that was just because of like the place that I decided to read it. If I didn't read it in a 24-hour challenge, if I didn't read it in my first 24-hour challenge, I think I would have done better. I think I ultimately rated this a 4-star or like a 4.5 star, because it was really good, but there is a codependency thing because they are living, like it's forced proximity, they're living in like such close quarters, but it does kind of turn into like a little bit of a codependency from the like women's side, which is not my favorite. So yeah, but other than that, and then the next book I read was my lowest starred book of the year that I actually finished, and that is Happily Never After by Lynn Painter. This book is about wedding crashers. Like, you can hire someone to crash your wedding and be the person that stands up and be like, I object, like, you should not get married. Normally if like one of the people are cheating, or if there's like a mutual, like, we don't want to get married, but like we don't want to, I don't know, cause a problem in the families, or like, so you're following Max and someone else, I don't remember what her name is, but like she does not believe in love, and there's forced proximity, but they're like co-wedding crashers, and the whole thing is them crashing weddings and her being like, I don't believe in love, and then they're falling in love. And I just like, it took a very spicy turn. Like, this book is probably one of the spicier books that I read, but it took a very like physical and like lusty turn, and like, I'm gonna use you for what I want, and it doesn't really matter who you are. And it was just, I don't know, it wasn't a good time. So I read the whole thing, but I rated it a 2-star. So not my favorite, but it is what it is. And then the next book I read after that is called The Writing Desk by Rachel Hawk. It's dual timeline, multiple POVs. I think technically it is a Christian romance book, but like whenever they talk about God, it's like really random and sporadic and like doesn't really make sense. This is another book that I would like to add to my physical bookshelf. But yeah, essentially we're following, there's a girl who's in an arranged marriage who's in love with someone else, this in like the early 1900s, and she has this big dream of being an author, and her mother doesn't approve, and there's like a bunch of like, she's like really dignified in society, and her mom wants her to marry like this high up man, but he doesn't love her, and she ends up falling in love with someone else who's not as high. I think it's like early New York is where we are. And so like you have that timeline, and then we have a present day author who needs to write a book, and she like has terrible writers after her dad died. She needs to write a sequel, I think, and she like has terrible writer's block, and her stepmom ends up getting cancer and asking if she can come out and take care of her. So she ends up going and taking care of her, and there's this writing desk that like becomes her inspiration. And yeah, it's a really interesting book. I really enjoyed it personally. I think because it had like the writing and a little bit of historical fiction and just all of that, I like really enjoyed it. So I rated that one a 5-star. I think that one just found me at the right time, like right time, right place, and good read. So I enjoyed that one. Then the next book that I read, I really wanted to read. I didn't make like a TBR for 2024 books I wanted to read, but I knew that I wanted to read this book in 2024, and that was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This book has so much hype. I like enjoyed it so much, and yeah, it's really just amazing. We're following two authors who are both kind of struggling with writer's block, and then they strike up a deal to write the other person's genre. So like the guy has one genre, the girl is writing in another genre. They both have writer's block, so they trade genres, and they're like, whoever like writes the better book, makes more money off of it, can get it published, I think is actually what it is. Then the other person will like promote it, because they're both like well-established authors. I think we're in Michigan. They're like super opposite of people, but like Gus is the main guy and January is the main girl. And guys, this book was so good. I literally cried reading this book, and I filmed myself reading this book and I accidentally deleted all of it, so I do not really have like a reading vlog of this book, which makes me so sad. But I literally cried at the end of this book. It was so good. So yeah, definitely 5-star. Recommend this book so much. Again, it's about writers. I just love books about writers, so I think that had something to do with it. So the next book that I read was also at the beginning of a 24-hour challenge. These next couple of books I read during this 24-hour challenge. And the first one that I finished the 24-hour challenge with was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Ashley Poston has like 3 semi-popular books that are going around. The Dead Romantics, The 7-Year Slip, which is like a really popular one, and then A Novel Love Story. And it's about a ghostwriter. So she's like writing books for someone else, and her boyfriend breaks up with her, and she doesn't believe in love anymore, and she cannot write like her final book in her contract. So she goes to her editor, and she just got a new editor, and she asks for a extension, I think, but it's like her like 5th extension or something, and he's like, no, I won't give you an extension. So then she goes to a club, and she gets a call that her dad has passed away. And so she goes home, and she hasn't been home in 10 years because like she thinks that the whole town thinks that she's crazy because she can see ghosts. And essentially we're following her around the town that she hasn't been to, her hometown that she hasn't been to in years and years, and a new ghost appears, and she starts to fall in love with him. And it's a whole thing, and the way that this book ends, I loved so much. Like, it's not the most realistic, and I could see people being like, that's so dumb, like why did you end it like that? But I loved it so much. Like, I just loved the ending of this book. So I think I rated this a 4.5 star. It was just really good read, and I just really enjoyed it. So the next book that I read in that 24-hour challenge was The Crooked Path by Irma Joubert. And this book is an historical fiction. Irma Joubert is my favorite author. She wrote The Girl from the Train, which is my favorite book of all time. Yeah, you're following dual timeline, or like dual POV. You're following this girl, you're following this guy, and like you're following them in their life essentially. This book made me cry, and because it made me cry, I'm gonna rate it a 5 star, just because there is like such like a moment, and I really did enjoy it. There's not like a ton to tell. You're in Africa in like 1900, I think, or like right around there, maybe 1800. So yeah, it was just a good book. Like, the plot is literally just following their lives, so it's not super crazy, but it is a little bit. So it was a good book. And then the next book that I read also in that video was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairies. I listened to it, like the whole thing, as an audiobook, and I enjoyed it. I don't remember it super in-depthly. I want to like that you're following Emily Wilde, and she is writing the very first Encyclopedia Fairies, and she has like one area of fairies that she needs to write, and then her encyclopedia will be done. So she goes to this island where they have the fairies, and she essentially is just studying them. And then her like academic rival comes and tries to help her, and she like does not like him. And like, I remember it being a good book. It's like the plot is thought out, but it's not, I don't know, there's like kind of grave stakes and kind of not, and it's like kind of like, it feels a little bit like reading a fever dream, just because like they are fairies, and it's like kind of super random. Oh, this book is by Heather Fawcett. I think it's pronounced Fawcett. I personally enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to the audiobook, but I could definitely see like reading it being a little bit more of a drag. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of them, because I think the second one is out, and then I think the third one comes out in 2025. But I don't know. I'm a little bit hesitant about it still. But I like Emily Wilde. I just don't enjoy Wendell, her academic partner. But maybe he'll grow on me more. Then the next book that I read was The Roughest Draft by Austin Sigmund Broca, and I was super excited to read this book. I was like over the moon, like yes please, like let's do this, because authors writing, it's kind of a second chance romance, kind of not, but I could not get behind it. They like loathe each other so much, like the entire book. Like, I got to at least 100 pages and they like still hated each other, and I was like, not about that. I feel like they're writing this romance book together, and like a lot of it was them talking about how to write like the spice scenes, which was so weird. Not a fan of that. I ended up DNFing it around, I think, a little bit after page 100, so I was really excited about that book too, so I was really disappointed. So the next book that I read you guys actually haven't seen me read because there are two reading vlogs that I need to post. And I just have not had the time to sit down and edit and post. But these next couple of books will be in those two videos. But the next book that I read was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, and this is the first book in the Part of Your World series, which is 3 books of an interconnected standalones. But I feel like they're more connected than a lot of people say. Like, I would definitely recommend reading this book before the next one. And so this book and my reviews on it will be in the video coming out that is Reading Predicted 5-Star Reads. So these next 3 books were in that video. And essentially this book is about, what's her name? Allie? Alexis. Alexis is a doctor, and she has this terrible breakup, and she is doubting if there are any good men left in the world. And then she's coming home from a funeral, and she meets this guy, Daniel, and he ends up like taking her back to his place, and they get together, and it turns into a friends with benefits situation, which that part I'm like not crazy about. It is a little bit on the spicier side. But she's kind of like fake. She's like friends with benefits with this guy, and her work drama is so much. Like, oh my gosh. And just like the stuff that she goes through is like crazy. But like, she's this really smart doctor, and she is like really good at her job, and she's like up for this big promotion, and it's just, yeah, there's like a lot that goes on in this, but it's a lot of her realizing like what normal people do, just because she's been kind of tailored. Like, she comes from this wealthier family, so she's not the most familiar with chores and stuff like that. But yeah, this was a really, really good book. I think in the moment I rated it a 5-star, but I think I'm gonna bump it down to a 4.5, just because the friends with benefits, like, I can't get behind. Like, it's not my favorite, friends with benefits. So alrighty, I just changed my battery because it was dying. But continuing, we have 6 books left. So this next book, oh my gosh guys, I'm so excited. I started on a 24-hour challenge, and then I ended up finishing it in this next video. And that book, guys, this book and Beach Read were like my most anticipated reads of 2024, and they did not disappoint. And that is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Oh my gosh guys, first of all, can we just talk about how kind of awesome Lauren Roberts is? She is a young, like, really successful author. She started writing during COVID, and then like her 3rd book is gonna come out in 2025, and well, it's more like her 4th book, honestly. But these books are so freaking good. Oh my gosh, I'm like so like about it. Like, it's just such a good book, and like, they are thick, but they are amazing. Oh my gosh. So essentially, if you haven't heard about this book, I would be shocked. But essentially we are following, actually I went into this book super blind, which I would also recommend, so I'm not going to say too much. But we have this kingdom where there are elites who are regular people with superpowers, kind of, and then ordinaries who are people that don't have superpowers. And the king is spreading this idea that the people with ordinary powers, the people that are ordinary, are diseased and tarnishing the powers of the elites. And so in this kingdom, it is illegal to be ordinary. And if you are ordinary and they find out about you, then they kill you. So yeah, that's like essentially this whole book. And there's this trial that he has, which kind of gives Hunger Game vibes, I'm not gonna lie. Definitely very different from the Hunger Games, but a little bit similar. But the kingdom like votes on like their top, I don't know, 8 people, and they go into these trials, and you try to win for glory or something. I don't even know. But you're following Peyton, who is ordinary, where it is illegal to be ordinary, but her father has trained her into acting like she has a power. And then our other main character is Kai, and he is a prince, and his main job is to kill the ordinary people. So they both go to these trials, and it's just such a good book, guys. And oh my gosh, I'm so obsessed with the series. I'm so excited for like the rest of these books. Like, it's so good.
You're welcome.
Oh my gosh. Why are you talking to me, Siri? Why are you talking to me? Anyways, the next book that I read was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter, and after reading Happily Never After, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this book. Like, so many people love this book so much. Like, it is very beloved. A sequel to this book literally just came out like a couple months ago. I read this book 5 stars. Goodness, it's so good. It's literally like a rom-com, but in a book form, in the best possible way. Like, go in with the expectation it's gonna be a little bit cheesy, because it is. I mean, rom-coms are a little bit cheesy, but goodness. We are following Liz, and she is like a hopeless romantic, and she like has like this dream of like meeting her main guy and like falling in love with him, and she has her childhood crush, Michael, moves back to her town her senior year of high school, and she's like, goodness, this is my chance to like fall in love with him, woo him, it's gonna be great. And then she like is trying to figure out how to get in with him, and her next door neighbor Wes is like friends with him, so she goes to Wes and she's like, help me be his friend. So he kind of turns into her wingman and like helps her win over Michael. And oh my gosh, guys, forced proximity, enemies to lovers, the parking space, oh my gosh, this book is so good. I recommend it. 5 star, 5 star. Loved this book, so good. I don't think that there's any spice in it. There's like one of the most romantic, like delicate kisses in this book. But yeah, it was literally a 5-star read. But there's like grief that she's dealing with because she lost her mom when she was young, but she's a senior now, and like everyone else has their moms, and it's so hard for her. And she has a stepmom that's really great, her dad's really great, her best friend, there's a little bit of drama there, but like this book overall was just so good, and I am so excited to read the next one. The next book that I read that was not in a reading vlog, actually, this is like the only book that I read that I did not film, was Powerful by Lauren Roberts, and this is the novella that comes right after Powerless. And in this book you're following Adina, which is Peyton's best friend, and if you have read Powerless, then you would know that going into this book there's like this sense of dread that follows you through the whole freaking book. But there's another character that gets introduced, he's amazing, and it was just a really fun book, but it was definitely tarnished by like the weight of knowing how it was going to end. So yeah, it was written really well. I really enjoyed it. It took me like surprisingly a long time to get through it, even though it's only like 100 pages. Yeah, it's like really short, but it took me forever to get through, so maybe more like 200 pages, but good book. I think I ultimately rated it like a 4.5 just because it was really good. It definitely like kind of destroyed me, but it was like what it was meant to be. So yeah, but like it's so short, I like didn't know, I don't know, but it was good. Next book that I read was I filmed a continuing series that I'm in the middle of that will also be coming out hopefully sometime in January, and so I read these next couple books in that video, and the first one that I read was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. After reading Part of Your World, I was like, I need to get the next book, so I literally placed this book on hold at the library, and I was like, I need to get my hands on this book ASAP. So as soon as I got it, basically I picked it up and I binged it because it was so good. We're following Brianna in this book. She is best friends with Alexis, who is the main character of the previous book, and she like just got divorced. Her brother is struggling with some type of autoimmune disease, and he needs a kidney replacement, and she's working at this hospital. She's like up for this really great promotion, and then there's a new doctor that comes. Jacob is his name. Oh my gosh, this book was so good. Rated at 5 stars. But Jacob comes, and she thinks that Jacob is up for the promotion also, and so she automatically hates him, and they have like a terrible first meeting, and yeah. So essentially it starts with she's a jerk to him, and then she learns some things about him. He struggles a lot with anxiety, and like social anxiety and just like people, and when she finds that out, she feels really bad for like being so mean to him, because I think her brother also struggles with anxiety and like overthinking. So she kind of helps him out on like how to fit in, and then they start exchanging letters, which is like so cute. Oh my gosh. But she has just like basically ended this marriage that she thought was her whole world, and so she's like, I'm never gonna love again. But oh my goodness, guys, there is like kind of a third act breakup, but also not. There's like a really big plot point that comes towards the end that was really good. Kind of random, but really good. I love seeing like Jacob's brain work with anxiety, and then like Brianna like countering that. There's fake dating in this. There is honestly the letters, like I love mixed media. Yeah, it was just a really good book, and I would also like to find this book at the bookstore, and I'm excited to read the next one. So love this book. The next book that I read to continue series I'm in the middle of is Jo's Boys by Louisa May Alcott. This is the final book in the Little Women series, and in this book you're following the boys that you read about in Little Men, but now they're adults making their way in the world, starting relationships, stuff like that, and you're just following them and seeing them, and I love this book so much, and I think I rated it also a 4.5 star. But I think you can only really enjoy this book if you do read Little Men. So like I only loved these characters because I knew their stories in Little Men. So yeah, this was honestly like a really good book. I enjoyed it a lot. I listened to the audiobook a lot. I read it. I picked it up and read it. Like I just love Louisa May Alcott's writing, and I really want to read like all of her backlog, all of the books that she published while she was alive. Yeah, so definitely enjoyed this one. If you are like Little Women fans and like you love, honestly guys, you know I love Little Women. Probably that one is probably actually my like all-time favorite book like ever. But if you like Little Women and like you want to continue the series, like I would definitely recommend Little Men and Jo's Boys. If you like love the characters, like Jo's in them, Amy's in them, Meg's in them, Laurie's in them, Mr. Bear, like they're all in them. So definitely love this book. And then the final book of 2024 that I read, even though, okay guys, I have 80 pages left of this book, so technically I did not finish it in 2024, but I'm going to count it as being in my 2024 book because I read, or my 2024 list, because I read the majority of this. And yeah, it just, that book is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. The second full book in the Powerless series. Oh my gosh, guys, this book is so good. I can't say that much about it. You're still following Peyton and Kai. There's like a lot that happens in the first book that you have to read in order to like understand this book. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's adventure. There is, I'm surprised by like the romance in it. It's just really good, and I can't really say that much because if you didn't read the first one, then you can't really, I don't want to spoil this one for you. So it's really good. It's really good so far. I know I need to finish it, and I'm going to, hopefully really soon. But yeah, I'm going to include this in this list, even though I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to anyways. Well, thank you guys so much. We have come to the end of this video. There are 2 honorable mentions I would like to point out because I started them this year and I want to finish them in the next year, but I'm like not going to be able to. The first one is On Writing by Stephen King. I've been reading this book while I'm writing. It's kind of my inspiration. And because of that, I just haven't finished it yet because I like use it while I'm writing. And yeah, so that one's great for writing. Honestly, Stephen King's biography is also really interesting. So if you're not interested in the writing part, if you at least read the first half, that's like his biography, autobiography, I don't remember. That's really great. The second book I started this year, back in a while ago, is 1984. I'm probably like halfway through it. I need to finish it. My goal is to finish it in 2025. And yeah, also a good book. It's a classic that I need to read. So anyways, oh, and I also DNF'd the X-Vows because I didn't know, I don't know, I needed to go back to the library. But we'll see if I pick back up in 2025. So those are the honorable mentions. We have come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, please like the video. I was super excited to film this video. I love watching these videos, so I hope that you enjoyed watching my version of this video. If you haven't already, you can go check me out over on Instagram at videos by Cabroni over there. I'm pretty consistent at posting, I would say. Some days are better than others, but yeah, it's a fun time over there if you just want to see like my day-to-day life. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Like I said, there are a couple really exciting videos that I have coming out in January, and then I have some really exciting videos planned for February that I've really been like spending a lot of time on, that I'm super excited about. So yes, thank you again so much for watching. Thank you for being one of my viewers. I'm so excited to see where 2025 takes this channel and continue to grow the community that we have. So without further ado, goodbye guys.